Well, hello there. I am so happy to welcome Tim White. And I'm inviting him into this Zoom because he has an amazing product that I am going to be using at my next Ultimate Reboot retreat. And this product is so phenomenal, and the results are also phenomenal. So I want to introduce Tim White and Raw Living Spirulina. And Tim, tell me why you're involved with this, how this came about, and yeah.
Okay, so I'm Tim White. I'm the owner of Raw Living Spirulina. We started this company about 8 years ago, originally at the Florida Institute of Technology Marine Laboratory, which was formerly the NASA space station tracking for the space shuttle. It's sort of evolved, growing some other unique algae into growing spirulina full time. And the people were lined up at our gate on the weekends looking for more of the spirulina product because it was helping them with all different types of arthritis pain. You name it, they were waiting at the door. So we continued on the project looking for more research time to figure out how to take spirulina into a fresh product because it had never been done before. Many of you listeners out there know that spirulina has been available for a long time in powdered form, in pill form, and never available fresh like the way we're doing it. So that was the main focus, to take it over to that level. My wife and I are Hippocrates health educators. So we live this lifestyle. We live the fresh, all raw living plants 24/7 for 20 years now. So we were looking for a product that could take us to another level.
Mm-hmm. Okay, wonderful. I see you've got some things sitting there. Are you going to show us what this looks like? Exactly, where does it come from? I mean, I look at pond scum. Is that kind of the same thing? Or tell me about it.
No, not really. Spirulina is known as a blue-green algae. It was coined that term by NASA in 1974. And if you see behind me, I have some key quotes from the USDA, NASA, United Nations. And one of the most powerful ones on here is that the NASA did a study that determined that 1 pound, so this is how the jar comes in a 1 pound jar, is equal to 1,000 pounds of fresh fruits and vegetables.
Wow.
And that is really difficult to comprehend. And it still is today for us as well.
Yeah.
But this is actually the book where the research on that study is published. It's about $500 book, but it's a textbook from university textbook. It's the bioactive molecules in food. And it explains in detail how this study came about. There are 35 billion living cells in this jar. We harvest fresh Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday from our farm here in Vero Beach. It's a 10-acre organic farm. The water that we grow in is in indoor enclosed greenhouses. So the water that we draw from is from a 650-foot deep spring aquifer in Florida. It's on the farm. So we're not pulling from municipal water sources, which is certainly very key to the purity of this spirulina. The texture is quite a bit different than most people would think of. It looks like a cream cheese, like a paste or a pudding, and you can actually just scoop it right out of the jar, just like this, and you can eat it just like this. What we love doing is we love mixing it in coconut water. And so we will take coconuts fresh, because we're in Florida, we can get coconuts fresh, and open up a coconut water. If you want, I can kind of show you what we do here. These young baby coconuts, they open really easily. And then you would pour into a glass. And then we take a metal whisk, scoop out about an ounce and a half of the spirulina, put it into the coconut water, and mix it up with the whisk. It's very important that you mix it gently because these cells are alive. Unlike the powdered spirulina, where they're dead. They've been incinerated in a spray dry machine at 200 degrees Celsius for 3 to 5 minutes. So you're destroying all the nutrients. There's nothing left except a mineral ash. So this right here is the ultimate vitality of health drink that you could find anywhere on the planet. There's nothing that comes close to this. Anne Wigmore, who founded Hippocrates, started her journey with wheatgrass. And in her books, she explains that when you combine fresh coconut water and high amounts of chlorophyll from wheatgrass juice, you have a blood transfusion. Wow. And that's basically what we're doing here with the electrolytes and the minerals from the coconut water, which is almost identical to our blood to begin with. And then you mix it with these living cells of spirulina, you just get this burst of high density nutrition, so high that if you eat 1 pound of this in one day, you will not need any other food. Your cells will be so saturated with nutrients that you will just feel on top of the clouds that I'm not deficient in any nutrients. And today, that's where disease comes from. It's from, we're deficiencies. And so the body's always looking for nutrients, and every nutrient known to man is in the spirulina, primarily the phytonutrients. Like I said, it's a blue-green algae. So we're looking primarily at the blue and the green. The green is chlorophyll. Our last laboratory test showed about 23% pure chlorophyll. That's chlorophyll A and B. And the other molecule, phytonutrient, is the blue. That's the phycocyanin. That's on the inside of the cell membrane. So these cells, they're like little water balloons. And when we consume them whole and fresh, the hydrochloric acid that's in our stomach will break that cell membrane open, release those phytonutrients into our stomach, and those nutrients will permeate right through into our blood within 10 minutes. So we will feel the nutrients alive in our blood, in our fingers, the energy of the cells of this magic spirulina. It just travels through every area of our body, feeding all of our 100 trillion cells in our body. And that's just something that most people have never experienced before.
You've been on this now for a while. How long did you say that you've been on the spirulina?
So it started this 8 years ago. 2016 is when we started our research and development for a couple of years to try to figure out how to do it. We grow, there's basically 2 strains of spirulina in the world, is Arthrospira plantisis and Arthrospira maximus. The plantisis is the strain that 99% of all the powder and tablets will be consisting of. And 95% of those are grown in China. They're grown in open pond systems. They're grown in the cheapest way possible with the cheapest nutrients possible. The air accumulation in China is very polluted, so that air settles into the ponds. Spirulina is it's a chelator. The chlorophyll in that high amounts does a great job of removing heavy metals from the body, but it also will soak up whatever it's growing in, whatever is in its environment. So if you're growing in a polluted environment, it's going to absorb those toxins or heavy metals, and then when you consume them, they get released into the body. So it's sort of counterproductive in that sense. So we want to stay very close to foods that are fresh. That's hard to get these days unless you're a farmer and you're growing, you're living next to a farm. So our food travels so far these days that we're losing so many of the valuable nutrients from the time it's harvested until the time it gets to your door.
So a couple of things I've heard you say is that when people are using the powdered spirulina, it's devoid of the life-giving enzymes and nutrients that were in the plant when it was alive. And the other concern is that if it's grown in an environment, because it's picking up pollutants, it's as you said, it's absorbing those, that there is a concern that you could take the spirulina in and it could be releasing toxic chemicals by virtue of the environment that it was grown in.
Exactly.
Mhm. Okay, and so and the way that you all manufacture this is in some really secure environment to where it's highly sanitary, so that you were not ingesting any heavy metals. Because I heard you also say that it's making bioavailable nutrients and phytochemicals, but it's also chelating.
Correct. Spirulina is almost a two-part food. The green is the cleaner upper of the body, so it cleans up the blood. It chelates the heavy metals and the toxins from the system, pulls the nutrient, the bad stuff out of the cells. And then the blue molecule comes in behind that, and that's where all of the primary good, valuable, rare nutrients that we need that flood into the cell. And so we think of the cell as it has a membrane, and that membrane is sort of the gatekeeper. And it looks at what it sees on the outside of the membrane, and it says, do I recognize that nutrient? Is that nutrient alive? Is that nutrient whole? Is that nutrient something I want in me? Is that nutrient, does it have the cofactors? Is it synthetic? Is it real nutrient? Is it from nature? Is it from a laboratory? And most of the supplements that people are taking today are the synthetic versions. They're not the real versions from food, because it's very expensive to get those. Mm-hmm. So what we want to look for in nutrients is how many nutrients are in the package, but does it contain the ratios that Mother Nature created? Because we humans think we can figure out how to make a synthetic supplement and then market it in beautiful packaging, and people think they're getting something that's valuable, and most of the time those are just being pushed out of the body.
Mm-hmm. So improving upon nature is not really an idea that's viable. We can't improve upon nature. And your product here, you're telling me that because things are processed in such a way that it's killing those enzymes. Well, how do you get your product shipped to a person to where it's still, it has all the value in it? What is your shipping process like?
So excellent question. So we harvest, so like I said, we grow in indoor greenhouses. They are 10,000 gallons of water each, and we have 4 main systems. So every 3 months, we are biologists. We have 2 biologists that look under the microscope and find a perfect single cell. We use that cell as the mother to grow the next batch for the next 3 months. So we grow for 3 months, and then we dump out all the water. We clean the entire system, and then we fill it back up with new, fresh spring water. We add all the nutrients, all plant-based nutrients. We don't use, so most spirulina grown around the world is not vegan. They use urea as their nitrogen source, and the urea comes from cows. It's cow urine. We do not use that. We use an organic nitrogen from Chile. Once we, the density of the spirulina, once it grows to a certain level, then it's harvestable. We skim off the top, the brand new baby cells that grew during the week. And we do this by hand because the cells are so fragile. Once we remove them gently from the water, we put them onto a table, and we allow we rinse them off with fresh water because they're growing in the nutrient bath. And then we allow them to drain and concentrate and chill down in refrigerators to about 40 degrees. Then we pack within 12 hours. We pack them in these glass jars by hand. And then we pack them in these custom cooler boxes. And this is an insulation that's 100% compostable. The jar goes in with an ice brick on the bottom and an ice brick on the top. And then we ship it FedEx second day directly to the customer's door. So it goes from basically our farm to the consumer's spoon in 2 days.
Wow.
On ice. And then when the customer receives it, they will notice that there are 3 dates on the lid. There's 2 dates that are primary to pay attention to. We always put the harvest date, harvest batch, and then we estimate 2 weeks advance from that date, and we put the use by date. And the use by date is not a date that's set in stone. It basically means that that's when the cells are going to start breaking, because there are 35 billion of them, kind of sort of crammed into the jar, and they're all, cuddled together, and they're not in their watery environment anymore. So over time, and especially scooping it out and the mechanical process of scooping some out will break some of the cells. And then just the natural process of breaking down of the algae over time, about 2 weeks after harvest, the change will go from green, which is the chlorophyll on the membrane, to a dark green in about 3 or 4 days, to a dark blue, which means you're starting to see the phycocyanin coming through the cell membrane. Now it's becoming visible. And then it turns into a more of a wet blue. And if you let it keep sitting, it will become almost liquid blue. Those are just the natural process of breaking down. So we want to consume it before the use by date or at the use by date. It's not unsafe. If you let it go longer, it converts into a probiotic. Whereas instead of the body recognizing all that protein, this is 71 to 72% protein, basically all the amino acids are recognized in the stomach, and that's why it permeates through. That bioavailability is so high in the first 10 minutes. Whereas if you let it sit for a couple weeks, the body wants to push it downstream into the lower small intestine and let the bacteria go to work and break it down even further. So somebody that's on plant-based diet, raw food diet, it's totally, they're not going to hardly notice anything. But somebody that is eating animal products, standard American diet, there's a lot of bacteria that is very different than the bacteria that is designed for eating plants. And there will be, some disruption that can happen, and it could flush them out, clean them out, literally. Which, that's
not a bad thing either, is it? So if you did find that you have some left over, using it as a probiotic would be okay. Just want to ask you though, 1 jar, what is your typical usage of that 1 jar, and how long are people on it? Like, would you suggest 3 to 5 times? I know you mentioned the Gerson therapy and they're using it 13 times a day in the juices, but let's just say an average person.
Great question. So we found, and I've been looking at about 30 intracellular SpectraCell blood tests a year from our customers. We also do a host retreats, Foundation of Life health retreats. And so we're taking these guests and we're looking at some blood profiles before and after, where we tell them to stop taking all their supplements. And then we look at the blood profile. We see any deficiencies that will be there, and most of the time we see deficiencies. We have them do 1 ounce a day for 6 months. At the end of 6 months, we do another complete SpectraCell blood test, and we see over 80% of the nutrients that were deficient in the beginning have completely normalized.
Wonderful.
So for somebody that's on a plant-based diet, eating healthy, 1 to 1.5 ounces is the optimal amount to provide the body with the micronutrients that they're probably not getting in their everyday foods. So on the other side of the spectrum, the Gerson clinic is using 4 ounces a day. And that is for stage 3 and stage 4 cancer patients.
Mhm.
So somewhere in that range, depending, you can estimate about where that person might be, and then you decide where you want to be. It is a whole food, so you can eat as much as you want. It's not an isolated nutrient or synthetic. It's real. It's like cucumbers or celery, or it's just very, very concentrated amounts of those. So a little bit goes a long way.
Can you just kind of give me a 2-minute elevator pitch of what a SpectraCell test is for people that don't know? What is that, and why would you need that?
So if you go to the doctor or the hospital, the SpectraCell is intracellular, whereas if you go to the doctor, that's extracellular. So that's just a test that's giving you your cholesterol levels. It's giving you the health of your organs, the health of your body. It's for doctors to look at what may be not working properly. Whereas SpectraCell is intracellular. They actually go inside your cells, pull out the liquid from the inside of our cell. They evaluate that, and it gives you a full report on the nutrients that your body is absorbing. And that's more for nutritionalists to determine what foods that you are lacking and what nutrients that you need more of.
Okay.
And it's Houston, Texas. You can go to spectracell.com. Only one in the world that I know of that is doing this type of blood test.
Okay. What is your website, Tim? How can people get your product or get a hold of you?
It's rawlivingspirulina.com.
Okay. Well, I really appreciate your time. I'm so excited to be able to use this. I run it's a modified sort of Gerson. I don't do the 13 juices, but we're using juicing. Also, as you know, Gerson believed in 2 things for disease. Every disease has toxicity and nutritional deficiency. So I'm dealing with that. And it's just an amazing thing that you have one product that can hit both at the same time.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I just really want to thank you for your time. I'm excited to implement your product in my program this time around, and hopefully from then on, and we're going to see some results. Anything you want to add, or any anecdote that you've seen where somebody has really seen something transformational that's worth sharing with everybody?
Fasting with the spirulina. If somebody is transitioning from a bad diet lifestyle they want to move over into more healthy, this can really accelerate that process. You can eat a jar a day for maybe 3 days, 4 days, and that empties out the entire digestive system and then reboots the system. So now you've cleaned out. Now the nutrients are very accessible to the body to absorb. Whereas in the beginning, they could be it take a little bit more time to do that.
Okay, so what about, let's say, a 2-day fast? Would you see some good results with that? Are people going to be starving while they're taking this, or is because the nutrients are there, they're not going to be as famished?
No, you will not be hungry at all. It's actually a challenge, quite a challenge to eat just a jar a day. The density of the nutrition is so high that you actually have to consciously be aware of, okay, I have another quarter of a jar left. I have had nothing today. I have to finish the rest of it. It's only 350 calories in a jar, but it's quality of nutrients versus quantity. We think of the nutrient label on all products, and they're all based on 2,000 calories today. The reason why that's so high is because the nutrients that are in the foods today are so low in nutrients that people have to eat so much food in order to get so little nutrients. Where if you reverse that, you have high density nutrition, you need a lot less quantity.
Well, I'm super excited. I'm just surprised more manufacturers aren't out there doing this. I have come across somebody else, but their farming methods, I think, are a bit questionable. I mean, when you can find it so cheap, you're really wondering, well, what are the constraints in their farming if they're really using pure water and protecting the algae from, heavy metals and environmental toxicities and whatnot. So I really appreciate what you're doing, and I'm excited to use it. I'm going to say I've never used it. I have a practitioner coming in that's an expert, and he swore by your product. He says, we've got to implement this in our protocol. And so we're going to give it a try. And I'm really excited. And I so appreciate your time, and I wish you all the best with this.
You too. Thank you so much for having me.